Hey everybody, how's it going? Hope everyone's having a good Monday afternoon. We got more Seahawks stuff to go into today. Two uploads back on schedule. Yesterday only did one, but we are back on our double upload schedule until the team won't allow me to do it anymore. And today I am going to be talking about a topic that we've already spent a good amount of time on, but I think bears additional research. We're going to be talking about the Sam linebacker spot for the Seattle Seahawks defense in 2021. And it's kind of funny that we're spending this much time talking about it because the Sam linebacker is, hopefully anyway, a player who won't see the field more than 25 to 30% of the time. But it's been very interesting what this team seems to be doing at the Sam linebacker position. And even if he's only on the field for 250 to 300 snaps this year, you're still talking about a player who is going to have an impact. So we've kind of gone back and forth on this topic in the last month, maybe a couple months. At first, I said that Darrell Taylor was probably going to be the Sam. And then, as I heard things from the organization, it seemed more likely that it was going to be Cody Barton. But after the rookie mini camps, after what we heard from Carroll, after what we saw on the field over the weekend, it has become a little more evident to me that this team sees Darrell Taylor as the Sam linebacker going forward. He's going to basically be the Bruce Irvin of this defense, or at least what we wanted Bruce Irvin to be last year. A guy who plays Sam linebacker on base downs and then moves to Leo on nickel downs. So I like this. Let me just say this real quick. I typically don't like it when we move players out of their natural positions, but bottom line is playing Sam linebacker is Darrell Taylor's best way to actually get a lot of snaps this year. So let me just say I like that in general. But let's talk about the specifics of putting Darrell Taylor at Sam and why it could have a big impact on this defense. All right. So, the first thing to understand when talking about playing Darrell Taylor at Sam is one thing the Seahawks defense did in 2020 that made their defense go from worst in the NFL to one of the better units in the NFL, and that is the bear front. So, here's an article that Corbin Smith wrote in early December last year. This was basically around the time when the Seahawks defense really started to figure things out after starting the season out so poorly. And this article basically addresses one of the technical things that they did with their defense that improved them so much, going from a unit that looked historically bad to a unit that actually started playing like they were one of the best defenses in the league sometimes. And that was implementing the bear front. So, what is the bear front? Let's scroll down a little bit, and Corbin Smith, excuse me, will describe it a little bit. The Barrett fronts feature three defensive tackles, two edge rushers, and two off ball linebackers. So basically, you have a nose tackle in the zero tech alignment, two other defensive tackles line up in three tech or four tech alignment, either shading the B gap or inside shoulder of the opposing tackle. And then you have two defensive ends split out wide in nine alignment who can either rush the quarterback or drop into coverage. Last year, Puna Ford was mostly always the nose tackle. The three techs were Jerron Reed, L.J. Collier, and Rasheem Green. And we saw Dunlap or Benson Mayowa at Leo, as well as KJ Wright playing the other wide nine spots. So here's a picture of our bear front so you can get a better idea of exactly how this looks. You have your Leo. This was typically either Carlos Dunlap or Benson Mayowa out here, lined up wide. You have a three tech here. This was a Rasheem Green on display, I think, but it was quite often um, LJ Collier as well. You have your nose tackle, that's Puna Ford. You have your big end. Now, this year, our big end is going to be Kerry Hyder. This is basically your five tech. Last year, you would have seen a little LJ Collier out here. You would have seen maybe a little Rasheem Green bumping over here. This year, it's going to be a lot of Kerry Hyder. And that's your defensive line. And then you have your linebackers back here. You have your Mike linebacker, Bobby Wagner, right here. And then you have your Will linebacker right over here. This is Jordan Brooks. And those two things should carry over into 2021. Most of this well. But if you look over here at KJ Wright, he's obviously a linebacker. He's been a linebacker his whole career. But if you take a look at this alignment, he's not lined up with the linebackers. He's lined up with the linemen. He's lined up basically the same way Dunlap is, just on the other side. He's lined up basically as a Leo. And that's how he was deployed on a lot of our base defensive downs. So let's go into that a little bit more. I'm not here to say anything negative about KJ Wright as a player. I think he played really well last year. He did great work in coverage in terms of preventing big plays, and he was good against the run, and he made a lot of big plays in the backfield. He was good for us last year. It was not his best season, and people need to stop saying that, but it was a good season. However, when you're lined up like this on a frequent basis, which KJ Wright was last year, he probably spent a couple hundred snaps at least lined up on the at the wide nine spot like this. You need to be able to get after the quarterback, and for all that KJ Wright did good last year, I wouldn't exactly call him an elite pass rusher. If you go to his PFR page, you will find stats that back up the things that I was saying. He was good. He had 86 tackles, 11 of them for a loss. He had an interception. He had 10 pass deflections. He recovered a couple fumbles. He had 2 sacks. But if you look at his overall production as a pass rusher, you're not going to see a guy who is terrifying opposing defenses. He had 6 pressures in 16 games. And obviously, some of those will come as a blitz from a more natural linebacker spot. So, in terms of actually getting to the quarterback, you probably only saw KJ Wright get to him, I don't even know, from the wide nine spot maybe 4 times all year. And while KJ Wright did enough good stuff last year to make up for that, you wouldn't exactly call him a success in terms of being able to get after the quarterback from that wide nine spot as a Sam linebacker. Had the Seahawks been a little healthier last year, and had they had Bruce Irvin in November and December, you probably would have seen Bruce Irvin play this role. And if you take a look at Bruce Irvin over his career, he's somebody who's always been able to do a pretty good job of getting to the quarterback. He's had some 8 sack seasons, he's had some 7 sack seasons, 6.5, 5.5. He's always been a guy who can get after that quarterback. And if you take a look at his pressure data, it was pretty good the last couple years. And last year, in very limited time, because he only played in basically a game and 3 quarters before he got hurt, he already had 4 pressures. And some of that came as playing as a defensive end because he was a hybrid for us. But you can still see how if we had Bruce Irvin playing Sam linebacker instead of KJ Wright at the end of the season last year, we might have lost something in terms of his coverage. We may have lost something against the run. There may have been a need to have a rotation of some kind. But Bruce Irvin would have been a more destructive pass rusher. So I don't know what Darrell Taylor's pressure data is because he was in college football last time he played. I don't have pressure data for players who played in college football. But I do know that Darrell Taylor, his last 2 years in college football, 2018 and 2019, had a total of 16 and a half sacks. So he was getting to the quarterback, and he was doing it in large part playing Sam linebacker. He was aligned as a linebacker in that Tennessee Volunteer defense. So we may be losing some stuff with KJ Wright not coming back this year because I believe that with the events of this weekend, it is much less likely KJ Wright comes back. We may be losing something with KJ Wright not coming back in coverage against the run and just in terms of general football knowledge because KJ Wright's been doing this for 10 years. But we are definitely going to be gaining something on these wide 5 defensive lineman looks because when you are aligned like this, you want your edge rushers to get to the quarterback. And while KJ Wright did a lot of good stuff for us lined up like this, most of it was not in terms of being a pass rusher. So Darrell Taylor can fit right in here. If you were worried about playing Darrell Taylor out of position, if he lines up like this a few hundred times next year, I don't think he's going to have anything to worry about on that front. This is where Darrell Taylor likes to be anyway. Just because he's listed as a linebacker technically doesn't change the fact that he's lined up on the line, is going to have his hand in the ground at least some of the time. and is going to be charged with rushing the passer a fair frequency. So that's why getting Darrell Taylor to play the Sam position effectively is a big deal. You can see it right here. This is going to do wonders for this Bear front defense, I think. Getting a Sam lined up on the line who can actually get to the quarterback reliably. Again, no shade to KJ Wright. He was good for us last year. But this is an area where Darrell Taylor has KJ Wright coming and going, getting to the quarterback. So keep an eye on this as it develops. If we can get Darrell Taylor on the field like this as a quote unquote fifth defensive lineman and second edge rusher, basically a second Leo, then opposing quarterbacks watch out. And if he can integrate himself well into the really good Bear fronts that we saw last year, then we might see an elite defense return to Seattle. Now, again, you don't want to see the Bear front that often because it means being in base defense, but the few hundred times we do see it this year, let's hope Taylor can do it. All right, I'm going to get out of here. Peace out. Go Hawks. That is my version of film study. My film study involves a single still picture, so I guess you could call it a budget version of a film study, but something to think about. Something to think about when you're thinking about Darrell Taylor this year. Just remember, playing a Sam linebacker in a Bear front is basically being a glorified defensive end. So let me know what you guys think in the comments. See you guys later tonight in stream. Peace out.